open settings.
Yeah, no, I definitely want your help on building my PC for just a better recording setup, so I don't have to like use my laptop, and I can just use my laptop for any and everything else for portable stuff that I need to get to or need to work on. I've had this tower for I want to say since 2017, and I've literally done nothing with it. Played League of Legends on it, so it can run that.
Yeah.
But obviously, League of Legends can run on literally a toaster with a screen. So
Depends. It's gotten a little bit better to the point where
gotten
like
better, yeah.
it's gotten better to the point where it requires some, but like yeah, literally like you can still run it on most laptops if you just dumb down the settings and
Yeah.
that's the real thing of a game is like World of Warcraft's different because World of Warcraft you can play on a toaster, but if you like send that game to like 1080p full,
Yeah.
oh god,
You
no.
need you need a Ryzen. You need to rising above the rest. Um, yeah. So probably sometime when you have time, we can talk about what rig I have and what rig I'd like to get to. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Um, yeah. All right. Go ahead and tell me the story you got.
So the story, or just pretty much how I came into computers.
Everything.
Okay. Um, I would say I started So I started computers at the age of like 3 or 5, and I don't mean that as in like I was like the genius that I am now at the age of 3. It was more of like I was um familiar with computers. I was
Yeah.
like after watching my dad use it because my dad is who taught me the beginning of computers.
What did he start with?
I don't really know what he started with computer wise. I don't think he really was into computers until like they started becoming more like widely available in like the early 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's when he started having, because I'm like, I was born in 91, and so like I think by the time I was like by 95, 96, when computers started hitting actual like
Yeah.
in the office, like in the household, is when like I started doing stuff. And like a funny story, like a short funny story that my mom would always say is she would hold me as a baby and I'd be like sucking on my fingers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she would always like ask my dad like, how do you do this? And I would just like grab the mouse from her, do whatever, and then like
And then do it. Yeah.
yeah. But I think a lot of like computer switching from to like what made me love computers was like high school.
Yeah.
Is trying to find like ways to make extra cash because I didn't really get a job. I was doing sports most of the time, and like doing computer repair helped out quite a bit. Like I'd make $20-$30 and they were just like fixing people's computers, reinstalling it, doing virus cleanup.
Yeah.
And then I want to say like when I moved, not when I moved out, but like a couple years later, like a couple years after high school, I sat in front of my computer for like a good like what is it like 3 hours watching a Newegg video on how to build computers because I knew everything how to like reinstall the operating system, do the basic stuff, but I didn't know how to like the straight necessities of like taking like building it from scratch. And
Yeah.
I sat there, and after watching, I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then so like a couple years later, after I got my first job, I started building the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there is when like it kind of launched off. I back in 2016 is when I got my 2014 is when I got my first like computer repair job, and I got let go from there mainly because it was just like it was kind of like a work study thing, but with like a company not associated with that college at the time.
Uh-huh.
But he pretty much told me, he was like, you're really good at what you do, you know what you're doing, and it was like I just don't have time to teach you the internal system, which then years later I found out, well not years later but like a couple weeks later I found out he had like hired someone who came in after me,
Yeah.
and like
Taught them the
you've been taught them the system, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you just like him a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that I was fine with that. And then a year later, actually not even a year later, a couple months later from there, I got my first server, which is actually in my closet, and I started doing that. It was like a server from Liquid Web. Started messing around with stuff. Had a friend who I had given a graphics card to a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
Started doing stuff like that. Talking to him a lot more about that because like I knew how to build computers, and in a sense servers are the same way. Like building them, like
Okay.
it's the same thing. It's just a lot dumbed down because there's a lot less stuff you have to worry about. It's more of what CPU can you do to pique that interest, and then like in a sense what operating system from there. So like you can use Windows, but it's only good if you use Windows for like Windows services or like that's your whole network. Or like for me, for example, I run a Plex server, I run an MB server for like media consumption, and I share it with my friends. that I have to use Linux for because the headroom for Linux is a lot more than Windows, where Windows has that nice like interface to click, where Linux is just a straight command line, or it can be a command line, and that's what I use it for. Is on that cases.
I was gonna ask you what you prefer more, were Microsoft or Linux? Because I had a guy in college, and he was always lamenting about how Linux was the future, the best, or whatever. So I was like, okay.
I would I would say Windows will always have a place just because it's been around for 30 odd years, and so is
Yeah.
Linux. But like Linux grew to attention because Microsoft had that contract with IBM, and IBM is a huge hardware manufacturer. But I would have to say, like, if people, the average person actually learned how to use computers, Linux would have a very quick place in everyone's home.
Okay.
Mainly for the fact that, like, it's super easy to use once you understand it. You can still, like, the only thing different is, like, when you're installing software. Like, you can install it through the command line, or, like, even, like, Ubuntu, for a prime example, has a store where you can install applications that way. But if there's applications that are not supported directly by Canonical, which is the manufacturer of Ubuntu, you have to learn how to install it. But the cool thing about Linux is, kind of like Android phones, is you can build a repository. Once you build a repository, add it to your phone, so your phone can pull from that repository. It's endless from there. Like, there's applications that are even supported by it, like, straight from the default, that, like, you can add the repository. But there's also developers, like, something that's been used so much by people, like, Logitech isn't supported natively on Linux, but some guy developed an application to, like, so you could actually pair those little the mice on Linux,
Yeah.
and it's in the repository. I think it's in, like, the default repository, like the default, like, repository from Ubuntu, and all you have to do is, like,
Ubuntu. Wow.
so, like, all you have to do is, like, the, like, sudo apt install the application's name, boom, done. And I'm like, and it's funny because I've been using Linux on and off for, like, a year, for, like, last, like, probably close to a decade now, and I've seen things that weren't even in there before that are in there now. It's funny too because Microsoft actually teamed up with Ubuntu, and you can actually, their Windows subsystem for Linux, you can actually install Linux alongside it while using, like, virtualization, and it's the greatest thing ever because, like, there's sometimes where I'm so like, I really don't want to test this on Windows. I don't want to see how this works on Windows. I want to see how this works on Ubuntu, and it's a lot easier to run it that way. And it's also, like, from a developing standpoint, it's a lot easier to, like, develop on Linux. Just the thing, because it's all like I said before, when there's so much more headroom you have, you can push that application a little bit longer compared to, like, a little further compared to what you would be able to with Windows, unless you have, like, a cracked out computer like mine is. Mine is completely overkill for what I do, but I did that because just in case I'm like, I'll venture into this one day.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, from 2014 being let go onto what from there? Was it 2014, 2015?
2014, 2015, because I moved out of Ypsilanti in, like, end of, like, the beginning of 2016. I stayed there for a while, and then after that I moved back to the Lansing area, and that's when I really wasn't doing IT then. I was just working at Target and Goodwill in Emporium in Lansing. And from there, what I was doing, I was still doing, like, freelance computer repair for people. I was diving a little bit more into, like, helping people, like, set up routers or stuff whenever they needed, like, networking stuff. And that's where I became a lot more into freelance because a lot more people were like, "Oh, he knows how to do computers." And at that point, I was telling people what I could do.
Yeah.
And I was selling computers. Like, I was pretty much, like, getting good deals on, like, Craigslist, building computers. Like, I think before I left Ypsilanti, I had built a computer that I took with me, and then I wound up selling for, like, a good, like, $200-$300, like, a couple months later. And then my friend wound up selling it to buy a better computer years later. But from there, what happened was I was living in Lansing, worked at those two jobs, and then I got into an argument one day with friends over something stupid, just because it was kind of like a toxic environment that we were living in, and I wound up, like, leaving them. And then I moved in with my best friend at the time. We don't really talk anymore, but he is the one who had, like, a good 42U rack, like, server. He worked at Liquid Web, and so, like, between, like, living with him and, like, his sister, it was kind of that's when, like, IT blew off, and that was, like, 2006, beginning of 2016, or, like, actually mid 2016. And that's when I was getting more into Linux. I was getting more into Windows. I was getting more into like just pretty much computers in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a lot of my stuff kind of like took off from there. And then move on to like a couple months later, because I was living in their basement. I was like, well, I really need to like get out of here. And it was nothing against them, but I needed to move out because I wanted my own place. And my friends were like, hey, do you want to like move out with us? And I was like, well, yeah, I would have to find a job. So I applied for a pretty much just a computer repair position
Yeah.
at where my friend worked, because he had been working there for a couple of years. And then I got hired in. It was like $9. It wasn't anything to like gripe about.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Which really, I mean, that's like you're doing computer repair.
yeah,
It could
it's
be like
it's a 15. Most
Yeah.
computer repair like what I get paid 15 right now.
Yeah.
15 right now. That's like the starting thing for like literally anything. Like if you're
Yeah.
not if you're paying less than that, it's literally
you're
just because you don't want. But it was a mom and pop computer repair shop, but he was paying like everybody low. I think like we had one person there. And by far, like, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn or brag, I was the most knowledgeable person there. I was more knowledgeable than the owner, and the owner had claimed to go to school for everything. But like I could from see what he was doing, I was like,
Yeah.
no, that's not.
it's different.
And I was the lowest. I was the lowest paid employee. I came in there. They're like, oh yeah, you'll start at 9, and then 3 months later, 9.50. I got let go 3 months in because I kind of had like an argument with the owner, and I'm like, no, this isn't like I'm getting underpaid. Like,
yeah.
you're being a dick to me pretty much. And like, from there, like it was just weird to have like. From there, like after I did that, because like I was doing a good job. Like I was dabbling more with Linux. I was at that time I had set up my server to the point where I was like doing Plex, because I've been running my Plex server for a good like 7 years now, on and off, and so finally that's when I had 2 servers. So I had like a server that would have all my storage, and then I'd have a server that had all my like everything that I needed, and I wound up selling the storage server because like it really wasn't worth it. I could do everything within that server, and I didn't have a lot of movies at the time, so pretty much that's what I do. I had sold off that server, and then I stayed there for about 2 years in Howell. And after that, like I worked at like Meyer,
Mm-hmm.
worked at H&R Block, did some little small IT stuff still on the side,
Mm-hmm.
until I had to move out. And I moved out because it was for a good reason. They were trying. My roommate at the time was trying to adopt her sister, and it didn't wind up going through. Like everything got resolved, like with like her parents, and like everything got wound up getting fixed.
Okay.
But I moved out to Grand Rapids, and that's where the pretty much it all took off. I transferred from Meyer up there, and so I was living there, and there is a I don't have the hoodie. I took the hoodie in my room, but there is a place out there in Grand Rapids that did a like computer recycling for their clients.
Okay.
But they also did there with its ITAD, which is like information technology, like asset, like it's not disposal, but it's like pretty much they would bulk buy like MacBooks, Chromebooks, and everything, and they would sell them to the students, not students but schools and everything, or like people who wanted them, or like even if it was like a mom and pop computer repair shop. So they would sell them, so they would have stock. So instead of like buying it brand new or buying it from like an individual seller on eBay, because they would usually get them for good prices, and then they would still give them to decent prices too. And so someone had a hoodie in Meyer, and I would always like ring them up like when I was at the self checkout. So finally, like I was getting paid like $13 at about $12 at Meyer, and I needed a second job because I'm not gonna lie, I hated retail, didn't like it at all.
I don't think anyone enjoys it really that much.
No.
If they do, more power to you, but yeah, it's not for everybody.
But the thing about it is so what I did from there, I was like finally like I sat there, talked to my mom a couple times, and the job was like Tech Defender was offering $10, and I finally was like, you know what, I can take this job during the week and then do Meyer like after I get off that job, and that so I was like I bit the bullet, applied, got the job. So I did. So then from there, I was doing a bunch of like, and this was like December of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I was from that point I was doing a bunch of like computer repair, teardowns. I had some people there who were like I would help with like reinstall, like I would help reinstall some things, but it was mostly just teardowns of laptops and like inventory. And so that's what I did there. And like you could like get your own like certifications within the business to like get your raises, but I really wasn't invested in that. I was more invested in trying to get like my foot in the door, because technically it's not IT, but it looks better that you're working for a job like that was IT. And so I did that from about like let's see, December of 18 to July of 2019. And then from there is when I decided that I didn't like Grand Rapids that much. My friend had moved, and I didn't really have a lot of people out there. And like where I lived was just like a really bad neighborhood. The roads were bad, so like I was just like taking a toll on my car. And so finally, I was like, I really want to move in by myself. Like I don't want to have to worry about stuff like that. So, in 2019, in about June or July, I had applied to an apartment down here because I was still working at Meyer at the time, so I technically had the income to pay for the apartment still. And I applied for the apartment around my birthday, got approved for it, and so I was like, well, I need to find a better job out here too. So what I did was I went through a company called Tech Systems. They do a lot of IT consulting, and so with them, the first assignment they wanted to give me was the state of Michigan. And so I was like, cool. They were like, yeah, I'm pretty knowledgeable in what I did. So they gave me a little quick questionnaire. I kind of like bullshitted the answers a little bit. And the delivery manager for the state of Michigan for that project was like, no. He was like, you're not really putting anything in your detail. We want more detail than this. And like I was a little heartbroken about it, but then at the same time, I was like, no, I understand. Like he wants more than like I need to do that. So what happened after that? After I found that, there was a consumer's energy position through Tech Systems as well. It was just like a 4-month contract to finish up their migration from when Windows 7 went out, end of life, and same with Outlook 2010. Outlook 2010's been out of life for a while now. And
You'd
so
be surprised how many? Oh, actually, you would know.
Oh yeah.
People still.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. People. The state of Michigan still has like XP machines out there.
Yeah.
But that's just because it's like there's certain applications I need to run off of it, and so my recruiter got me in for that position, and what it had. So got that, and it was like cool. So your start like August like 28th or whatever or something of 2019. So I was like cool. So I had everything done. I put my like month and a half, maybe 2 months notice into like Tech Defender saying, hey, like I'm moving downstate, yada yada, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I got down here pretty much, and I didn't have anything to do for like a week, but I already had paid rent, so everything, so like I was good for the month. And what wound up happening was I got down here, and literally the week that I got here, they apparently were like, oh, we don't need any people for that position, because what I was going to do is I was going to do like the installs.
Yeah.
So like that flipped me like upside down. I went from like having like this grand paying like $17 an hour job, like work like pretty much traveling across the state to set up install Windows, to all I had was Meyer. And so I told Meyer at the time, I was like, hey, I need you to change me to full time, and it's retail, so they had no problem doing that.
Yeah.
And so
you mean you want to be worked?
Yeah, pretty much. And so from
from
there, like I was like, okay, cool. Like I fixed that, everything got fixed, and then like a month later, they're like, hey, we have another consumer's position. I'm like, what is it this time? And they're like, it's help desk for the project that you were supposed to do. And I'm like, you know what? It's IT, and I really still want to do IT, so fine. And so I started doing that, and that was September. So it was like a month later from that date,
right.
And I'm not gonna lie, I walked in there the first day, and I'm like, I thought this was gonna be a lot easier. Like I had never dealt with like Active Directory itself, and now it's something I'm extremely good at. I can set it up. I can enforce group policies. I can do all I can't do all of it, but I can do a lot of like the basic stuff that you would need for like a basic like just, hey, we're a new business. This is starting off like that.
Okay.
And so from there, like, and I met some pretty cool people. Like, I'm friends with, I wouldn't say friends with all of them. I still keep in touch with some of them. There's one that I have on my Facebook. His name is Stuart. He's a really cool dude. He helped me out a lot. Pretty much, like, he was a great mentor and a teacher while on the job. And, like, consumers took advantage of him, kind of, but not really. They just didn't want, they had a bad experience with the company, so they're like, no, we don't. Thank you for your work. You can go now. And he just was a great inspiration to me. Like, helped out whenever, because he lives out here in Lansing, too, so, like, and we were going to carpool at one point, but that never, like, came to fruition. So, like, he still, like, helped me every day, yada, yada, yada. And that's when, after I moved out here, and I was doing that for a couple months, I was like, I want to go back to school. And I was like, I want to try going to school one more time. And so that's when I enrolled into CareerQuest.
Yeah.
And so CareerQuest had a network administration program And I was like, cool, they have an IT program, and it's in the same field that I'm going into, network administration, system administration. And the one thing I'm usually hesitant about is usually those teachers are like, they know like as much as you, if like not maybe a little bit more or something like that.
Okay.
But the teacher that I had, Nate, was very, very like knowledgeable. He had done like he'd gone to Career Quest too, but pretty much he had the same like hobby of computers. Like he would always want to do more with computers, and so like having him in the program like as my teacher just like locked me in. I stayed there and I like finished the diploma like in July of last year of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But what had happened as that was going on was as I went to school. So I was going to school and I was driving to Jackson every day. And I'm like, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so come towards like Christmas time, towards the end of like the contract, because the contract for that I was deployed for was going to end that year anyway. Or like in the beginning of next year, because they were like, we don't know what you're doing. You may be unemployed for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, I can't really go unemployed for 2 weeks now, can I?
Yeah.
And so I had done help desk for 3 months now, and I was pretty much an analyst. I was like redistributing packages, like the packages for software. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? Like I've done a lot more. People have told me how to document a little bit more, and my recruiter at the time, because I had changed like recruiter like once after that, because the other guy went back to college. He was like, well, do you want to try for the state? And I'm like, you know what? Fine, yeah. Like, my mom works for the state. She's worked there for 20 years. She loves it. And I was like, fine, let's try that. So, like, they did it again.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I did the documentation thing. The delivery manager loved it. He was like, yes, this is a big improvement for what you did last time. I would have no problem with actually giving you, like a troubleshooting call, because I had, like, 3 or 4 interviews with the state before I actually went on as a contractor. And so I did that. And it was probably the messiest thing, because they always wanted to do it while I worked, so I'd have to take like an extended lunch or extended break just so I could actually like get ready. Not get ready, but like be ready for like the transition.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is from there I had another one where I would call and he was like, we're gonna do some like role playing scenarios, yada yada. This is what it'll do. And one of the one that just made me laugh was because it was simplicity, easy, but people forget it. He was like, "Yeah, my keyboard's not working, and I can't get it to turn on, and my mouse isn't working." And I'm like, "Well, is the little USB dongle in there?" It's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Did you check your batteries?" And as soon as I said, "Did you check the batteries?" He's like, "Yep, that was it." He was like, "Most people don't actually get that one, or actually don't think about batteries right away." And I'm like, "My batteries die all the time in my wireless mice, so that's the only reason I guess that." And so that one went well, and then after that one, he was like, "Yeah, let's bring you on for an actual interview with some of the state supervisors." And I'm so used to one-on-one interviews, so I'm thinking this is going to be another one-on-one interview. And before the call ends, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be with 3 supervisors and myself." So I'm like, I have to do an interview with 4 different people. I was like, that's not going to be as fun as I thought it was going to be. And I sat there and I'm like, I can do this. So I go there. My recruiter is like calling me to keep me up to date, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, cool, this is fine. This is great. And I get there, and this one supervisor meets me there. And he was like, oh, yeah, Chris, your representative from tech isn't here today. He had an emergency. And I'm like, so now I'm feeling like it's kind of levered against me. I'm like, now I'm interviewing with just straight state employees and just myself. And not someone who has seen me and do work for the last couple of days. And so, the last couple of months. So at this point, I'm sitting here like, fine, I got this. So I do the interview. And like, I thought I was going to choke on it, but like, it wasn't the easiest interview. It was probably one of my better interviews, because I interviewed a lot between like 2014 to 2019. And so I did the interview, finished it. It was a little awkward at the end because I'm so used to kind of just walking out myself. And I was like, I'll walk you out because it's a state government building. You can't just be walking. And he's like, and the one supervisor's like, I have to walk you out. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And so from then, like after he walked me out, everything, I'm like sitting in my car, I'm like driving home, and I'm like, I think the interview went well. I don't know. And, like I called my recruiter, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm busy right now, like just I'll get back to you. And he calls me back and he was like, congratulations, you got the job.
Nice.
So this was like early November of like 2019. So I'm glad I got the job. So like December 16th is when I started the job at the state as a contractor. And so I'm thinking, I was like, I'm going to love this year. It's going to be great, yada, yada, yada. So, like, I did, like, 2 months of training. So I was like, this is great. Like, I feel like I'm doing good. I was getting, like, decent scores on, like, the assessments because in help desk things since we were an actual, I can't remember what the certification for, like, help desk is called again.
Okay.
But, like, I got, like, we had to keep compliance with everything. So, like, I felt like I was doing good. I choked up on little things just because I'm, like, I wasn't quite understanding some parts of, like, the KBA because I'm so, like, they were like, follow the KBA, always follow the instructions, and I'm so like, well, I know how to do this without the instructions, so I'll do this myself. And so from there, like, I was sitting there, and I was like, cool, this is great. I can pretty much, like, they gave me a little bit extra time, and I was like, cool, finish that. And so then we like pretty much like it's like beginning of February of 2020, and I'm like, cool, and like. At this time, though, like, I had, like, looked at, like, I was looking at the news, and it was, like, China's like, oh, the Chinese has a flu, and I'm like, oh, cool, it's never going to hit America. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm doing this, and then mid-March of 2020, first COVID cases in, like, in the United States, I was like, okay, that's easy, that's easy.
Yeah, we'll be alright.
And then it hits Michigan State University, and I'm like, okay, that's a little too close to home. I don't like that. And then it started expanding, and then that's when pretty much the governor was like, everybody, pack your bags, you're going home.
Yeah.
And so and it's funny because with the state, you can only technically work from home if you've been there for like 6 months, and it's only 2 days a week. So I went from trying to like feel like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to earn this to surprise, surprise, it's a pandemic, you gotta go home. And so that was probably, I feel like, in a sense, the best thing for me. Because, so what happened was, I didn't have to do a lot of driving, so I was saving a lot of money. I was getting a crap ton of overtime because we had to, like, help onboard, like, all the state employees to get. So I'm getting, like, 60, sometimes 70-hour work weeks just because I'm trying to, like, help them out. And plus, I'm, like, I live by myself, and I don't got anywhere else to go, so I'm going to do this. And so, like, we started doing all of that. And then I'm like, cool, this is great. And, about, like, April is, like, when, like, it slowed, like, April, May is when it slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
So everybody was onboarded, but to the point where, like, we're good. So, like, it died down a little bit. But at that time, I was like, well, I need to do something because, like, I can't just sit here and just, like,
Be a stand
just be, like, in a sense, like, clock off for the day and do nothing. Because I was still going to school every time, and school had gone for full virtual at that time, too.
Yeah.
And so, at that time, like, I started building with servers, and so, like, as I showed you my servers, that is when I started, like, doing a lot more servers. So I had, like, the storage server that I have in the bottom of my rack is the first server I had, and that was, like, pretty much going to be used for everything, but, like, the board had an issue with it, so I was like, that's not good. So I was like, cool, I'll just, like, start buying server parts and this, and so this is what I was doing when I was hanging out with my friends after work on Discord, after I had class and everything. And so that was, like, it was fun, it was cool, and then, like, let's say, like, around June, that was, like, it slowed down even more to the point where, like, we never got to go home early because they still needed us, but it was to the point where, like, it wasn't as busy, I wasn't getting hours, so I'm like, okay, I don't know, like, I'll just pretty much do what I can. And so what wound up happening around that time is when I started, like, actually buying servers from other people, so until I can get to, like, getting more like noticeable for, like, networking and all that. And that's when I my router at the time had died, so I bought, like, a little, like, Ubiquiti Edge Router X, and I sold it to a friend, but, like, the router's, like, this big. And that's when I started getting more into, like, networking and stuff like that. And so that's when that was fun, because I was like, cool. But the problem with it is I would always get too curious while in work hours. And so what I would do is I'm like, okay, I'm going to push this through during work hours as I'm, like, on my, like, lunch break or something, because I'm never going to do it during a call. And I cannot tell you how many times my, like, internet would go down for a couple of hours, and I'm like, yeah, something happened with Comcast, which was a viable excuse at the time, because Comcast was getting bombarded with everyone working from home.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would finally fix it, and then, like, it just, everything, like, just, I finally, like, towards, let's say, like, September, I was pretty much, like, thinking that we're going to go back soon. No, it wasn't going to happen. We're going to go back. And then, like, finally September, like, the governor was like, you're not coming home. You're not going back to the office until, like, next year. So I was like, cool, fine. But this is also when the time, like, some of the state workers, like, to save money and to use the money from the federal government, what they did is they had a lot of people. They would have furlough days, so they were technically laid off for those days, but they still got paid from the federal government. So like, they got a bunch of extra money, and then like because we were a contracting agency and I consulting agency, they like cut ours,
Yeah.
which like smart business move because you need to do that. But I'm like I myself I'm offended by it. I was like, well, I was like whatever, like, but like my company was like nice enough to take the hit for us, so like I still got paid what I got paid. And then I want to say like a month later, some of the people are getting raises, and like we were like talking outside. I'm like, how are you getting raises? I didn't get a raise.
In a pandemic.
Yeah. Exactly in a pandemic, and so like that happened, and I'm like, and we got an email one day of like, it's been heard around now, and like people yada yada, like saying we're getting raises. Oh, ask your manager, like supervisor. I'm like, well, my supervisor doesn't really do a lot, and he's being talked to by manager for not doing a lot, and like, so like it was like a weird thing, and so finally when I found out that I wasn't getting the raise, I'm like, so you're not going to give me a raise during a pandemic, but you're going to give other people who came in at the same time and after me. I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I was like, clearly this company isn't a great fit for me. And like, but it was more or less like during that whole pandemic, everything was a mess. Everything was crashing. Like there was one day like infrastructure was down for like 2 hours. I'm like, I'm still getting paid for it, so that's great and everything, but it's like, I want to be doing something, people. Yeah. And so finally, like, I started like looking for jobs again. Like I applied places. I was like, and then the school that I went to, that I just got my associate's degree from, had a IT position because like they really needed someone. In my current boss like really needed someone, and so I was like, you know what? And we were already talking about some of my classmates about it because one of my classmates was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, YOLO, let me apply for this. The worst they can do is deny me, and then I just keep on working from the state because I get to work from home anyway. Mm-hmm. And so from like what I did there is like I didn't hear from them for like a good like week or two, and then like I had the first interview, and like it was a great interview. Like I killed it. Like I knew everything she wanted, pretty much everything they want to hear, and it was great. It was great. The only thing that like griped me is like I really wanted benefits. Like I really needed like medical benefits and all stuff like that, and so from there like I had that interview. And then she's like, oh, yeah, this is a really great interview. We'll push you around for round 2 along with some other candidates. I was like, great, thank you. And then the next one was, like, I had, like, my, who is now my current boss, so the IT director of my school, I had the interview with him. And that was a cool one because I'm like, I'm not going to try to talk IT with the HR director. She's going to look at me like a deer in the headlights. So finally was that I, like, positioned my desk just right so I could turn my webcam during the Zoom call so he could see my home lab, so he could see, like, everything that I do with servers.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, like, this is what I do, and this is what I, yada, yada, yada. And then I want to say, like, a week and a half after that, they're like, congratulations, we're excited to go with you. You seem to be the best candidate. And I was like, great, thanks. So then I gave, like, the state of Michigan, like, 2 weeks. It was kind of bittersweet because it was, like, right before, like, I started the one job on November 30th of 2020. Mm-hmm. And it was bittersweet because, like, I'm not going to lie, I really wanted to grow with the state, but I'm like, this is a lot more what I want to do. I don't want to sit in front of, like, taking calls all day because I'm not going to lie. There's times when, like, on those calls, I'm like, well, if you're not going to listen to me, then why didn't you call the help desk?
Right, yeah.
Submit a ticket then, and someone else can call you. And then, so, like, from there, it was, like, I transitioned in from doing more of, like, on-site repairs and stuff instead of doing that. And then I had just finished in July of 2020, I had finished, like, the diploma program. And then, like, a couple months later, I started the associate. So I was working for the school, but also doing my associate's degree at the same time with the school as well. Mm-hmm. And it was tough, I'm not going to lie, like, trying to get that all done. And it was just like, okay, like, I can try to do this. And it worked out really well. And then, like, February is when the instructor that had pretty much, like, got me to stay with Career Quest had passed away.
Oh.
And so, like, that, like, hit the whole school, like, relatively hard because, like, even if you weren't his student, he'd always, like, encourage you, like, because he was also, like, helped the student association.
Right.
He helped with that. Like, he was just in things. So it was, like, it was really, like, a hard thing. And this is, like, 2 months before I'm about to finish my associate's degree. So it's, like, and at that time, like, I'm not going to lie, like, you get depressed when stuff like that happens. And so, like, at that time, like, I was thinking, I'm like, I could just, like, quit the degree and like just stay do with this job. I was like, no, I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna stay there. I'm gonna do this for him.
Yeah.
And so I finished the degree in the next month in March of this year, March 15th to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I've been working there ever since, and it's been a lot nicer because it's like I finished the degree. I don't no longer have to go to school, but like I'm doing everything to further, like in a sense, my career and everything.
Right.
It's also been really nice because like my boss is able to help me with stuff. Like we do those do the boot camps so I can actually get certified. So like in a sense, if I do find a better job, like he doesn't have any ill malice towards me for. He's like pretty much he's like him as like he's probably one of the best bosses I've ever had for the fact that he was like, I want to see you grow in your career instead of just being complacent somewhere, because like in IT, it like with the state of Michigan for prime example, if you get hired in as an IT tech there, like that help desk, it's like $20 an hour, so it's easy to become really complacent with like
it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. And it's stuff you can do, but I'm one of those people, I never want to be complacent. I always want to be learning something, because if I'm not learning something, then, like, in a sense, what am I doing? And I think that's, like, a mindset everyone should technically have.
Yeah.
Because if you're complacent with somebody, you're just like, this is good enough, like, what's going to stop you? Like, that will soon start affecting your actual, like, work performance. Because I've seen that before. Like, it doesn't, like, it's not bad, but you're like, well, you've done better. And you're like, well, I'm comfortable with it. And you never, like... That's the thing. Don't ever get comfortable with it. Always make sure you're pushing yourself to do stuff like different stuff or like other ways. Like for a prime example, like a lot of stuff that I do, I try to make sure like with my job, like I have to install software on a lot of the computers, and I try to find stuff to like in a sense either script it together or find ways to like run everything at once. But sometimes I can't run because some installers will say, hey, no, can't run while this installer is running.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's stuff like that. Like I try to always make sure that I can do stuff like that. But about a month or two ago, my school partnered up with a university called Bellevue University, to where they will pretty much take your associate's degree and pretty much put it towards a bachelor's degree. So that's when I decided that like as of next year I'm going to start doing my bachelor's degree, mainly for the fact that as I wanted to take at least a year off. Like I didn't want to just hop straight into another degree and just like schooling straight for 3 years, because it's not fun, and you won't have fun with it. And it's something I wanted to like better myself that way instead of like trying to, because I wanted to better myself for the job first before I started to like, oh, I'm gonna do this, because at that point, like if I'm like complacent with just trying to get like in a sense being comfortable, complacent with the job, reaching for that, I'm not really trying to help out the company. And my thing about it is I have like a loyalty complex with like any. I try to have a loyalty complex in both of my jobs, unless like I feel like I'm done wrong. Then I'm just kind of like, well, the loyalty's get done here. You guys have a nice day.
Yeah. I'm less with the loyalty now, just because of pandemic and things that my career life has it, how it came about. So therefore, I'm like, if there's another job that's paying me a little bit more, well, I will see you later. Or if there's a situation that just benefits me more, and you're a company that's not going to try to continue my employment or actively challenge me in ways that better me or benefit me more, I have no qualms. But I'm out. I'm seeing somebody else. Like it's just the way it is. Because really, down to when it comes to HR and finances and accounting, everything, it's just pretty much you're just a number to them. You're an employee ID, and that's it. That's
and the thing about like with IT, because IT has so many like information technology, has so many fields. I could easily just go to a different like help desk shop, but the problem with help desk is you have to sit there. It's like retail, but for like almost like intellectuals, like retail for intellectuals. Let's put to make a joke about it. Is like you have this career path, you know what you're doing, you know how to fix computers, but you're just sitting in front of a phone all day, helping people that way and taking tickets. Where I would much rather be able to like go somewhere, because I have to drive to like Mount Pleasant, Jackson, sometimes to fix computers, and like I enjoy that sometimes. Because I can listen to podcasts. I don't enjoy it if it's like just a one-off thing, because I'm just like, I really don't want to waste the gas to go here, but this person needs help, and I'm going to help this person out because they need help. I don't want to let them sit there just
suffer through it.
Exactly, and that's the one thing I'm also one of those things is it's I do enjoy money as much as the next person, but to me, money isn't everything because,
Yeah.
in a sense, like I could have easily because I still like talk to some people within the state, and there's been a bunch of people. Even I could have easily stayed. I could have easily stayed there, waited out a couple of months, applied for a position, got it, and gotten paid more than I do now. But then I would still be sitting in front of phones all day long,
Right.
and it's not something I enjoy. So like to do that, to be able to sit in front of an actual like desk, or no, so that like in a sense have like my own office instead of like a little cubicle. So like have my own office, be able to do stuff like on campus, and then in a sense to still be able to work from home because I'm pretty sure even after this pandemic is all the way over, there'll still be days where I can literally just like, yeah, you guys don't really need me here. I'll just
Right.
sit at home, do this. If you guys need me, I'll get in my car, go. And honestly, like with IT in general, like the things that I do, besides like the days that I actually have to be like, it's almost I would almost rather do that because it's all like, one, you don't have to save space for me, but it's always good to have space for like in a sense for me. But at the same time, I enjoy being on campus because like I enjoy like talking to people on the occasion. There's some days like I have my little social battery, and once it drains, I have to recharge it. But there's other days where like I'll be there 2 seconds later, someone says something stupid, and then I'm like, okay, well I don't want to talk to them, but I just want to go home now.
Yeah. So when do you get paid to go out and fix computers, or like your travel? Do they pay for that?
They reimburse me for my travel. So
Okay.
like if I go to like any of the campuses, they reimburse me for the mileage that I drive, which is pretty good because usually
Yeah.
within a month I can make like an extra 100.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's great, and it's also it helps in a sense like it shows that they care because there's a lot
Yeah.
of jobs who are sit there are like, oh no, you work for us, this is part of your job, and it's all like,
Yeah.
and I've seen jobs that wanted to pay me $14 an hour, and then are like, oh no, we're not paying for your gas, and I'm like,
Yeah.
then why would I drive for you? You're gonna give me a
Right.
company vehicle?
Yeah, you gonna give me your car? I'm not putting it on my car. Your gas money. Your
Exactly.
car.
Like I have to pay for my gas, but like that's
Mm-hmm.
the amount of driving that I do is like very little, and 99% of the time, like since like we usually have people at like all the campuses, so like literally like if someone needs a new laptop, we can usually swap it out. Like my boss works in our Jackson campus,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm 30 minutes from it, so like I can either go to Lansing Jackson, or if I need to go to Mount Pleasant, I can do that. It's really, I would say it's really fun to do this type of work, mainly because this is what keeps you interested and keeps you intrigued.
Yeah.
The only thing about it is like, we're also like on this, since we're a rather small company, what we do is, we outsource a lot of like the servers and stuff. So like other companies like help us with that, which is nice. But the problem I think the problem with that is like with us internally, like it leaves us to like a small smidge that we can do. Like we can still like pretty much like just mess with the servers, configure them how we want, or
Yeah.
like if we need to make configuration changes. But we also like want to make sure like the company knows what we're doing too, because like there was one time I forwarded my student emails to my like work email because I used to be a student there too.
Yeah.
And my boss messaged me 5 seconds later. Did you did you set a forwarding rule to your emails? Like, yeah. Why? And it was like it was like the IT company messaged me about it. I was like, oh yeah, I did. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I.
Yeah. That makes that's pretty good security. I would
It
say.
is, and I'm
That's very
glad they monitor it because it's
yeah.
something like that. Because like some companies don't even monitor that, so they don't know. And it's
Yeah.
like someone could easily get hacked. Boom, start forwarding, and then like that, like, and it's. And the good thing about it is too is I'm pretty sure that company could stop, like, reverse that rule if need be,
Yeah.
which is also great because if the rule didn't get reversed and someone were to like like a foreign hacker or something like that, or like just like someone who's not like foreign to the company,
Yeah.
where they get in there, change that stuff out, you can get like a ton of information you don't need, and then you can be like, I won't release this information if you pay me that. So then all of a sudden now
Yeah.
it's a ransom, and it's all like, and in reality you should never pay those. You should always like contact authorities for those when stuff like that happens.
Mhm.
Because the problem with that, like with like in a sense like with ransoms like that, but then also ransomware like viruses,
Yeah.
is if you do that, it sets a proceeding to tell them, hey, oh yeah, we'll comply with you. Don't ever comply with
Or
them.
they'll just be like, you know what? Instead, we're gonna up the price now.
Yeah.
because we felt like it. And,
Yeah.
you know, here's the price now.
Because like if you like sit there and you're like, oh, I'm gonna take if you take your time doing it, they're gonna be like, well, you know what? Like now I'm just gonna
do
they're like,
more damage. or
yeah,
whatever,
I'm gonna do more damage. Or if you take your time with it, like we're gonna price to this, and then you're like, why?
Yeah, yeah, because it's even, what was it? Just in the news, one of the oil companies, the FBI, they tracked the Bitcoin that the oil company paid.
Oh, the what is it? The Colonial Pipeline that got
Yeah.
hacked by Russia. Yep.
Yeah, so they tracked it and to like some different little hackers here and there, and they got most of the Bitcoin back. But the issue was that the Bitcoin is not worth as much as it was beforehand. So they technically, yeah, they got their money, their Bitcoin back,
Yeah.
but they got less money back from it.
When the funny thing about that with like in a sense just computer hacking and stuff like that, the problem with that is like there's nation state hackers, so like America has nation state hackers, all the major countries, and
Yeah.
usually they're not there to do like ill. They're there to literally like to do stuff like when stuff like they need to like in essence they need to get information and stuff like that. But it's always funny when like just like the everyday like advanced hacker tries to hack stuff like the Colonial Pipeline and stuff like that, because it's funny because it's like these are tied to governments, you know, the government gives them money, you know, as soon as you do that the government's gonna be like
Involved.
Time to go.
Right.
and so it's like it's smart, but at the same time like don't do dumb shit like that, don't sit there and try to like hack some like the funniest thing I've ever had was I was torrenting I was torrenting a movie once, and I think it was a Rogue One. Like, I think somebody like implanted like a DDoS in that one because my internet kept on going down. I'm like, why is my internet? Like, I called Comcast, and this is the fun because this is the first time I've ever heard something smart from a Comcast. He's like, well, look at the download you're doing and end the download real quick, end the torrent that you're doing right now, and see if that works. Okay. I shit you not. When I ended that torrent, full functionality back to my network, and I'm like,
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, that's when I was careful about where I like downloaded stuff from, because I'm like, because like usually like any torrent websites like fine and stuff like that, but I was like, that's something good to know.
It might be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, like
how would they? Why would they? What's the?
Yeah, pretty much. That was the whole issue. Like I sat there and I was like,
what else did they take besides my internet?
exactly. I'm like, what information? So like that's when I went from like the everyday like router to like I use like a PSense, which is like a firewall, but it also does like the basic routing that you do, and then I have a smart managed switch that does everything else that it needs to do too. So it's like something that's good, and I know exactly what it's doing, so I'm not sitting there like wondering what's gonna happen, because like once you implement a firewall or security appliances or something like that to your network, it makes it that much harder. Like you're never unhackable. Unhackable is impossible. For the fact that you can see Amazon gets hacked, and Amazon probably
Literally
has
every
security.
company.
Yeah, they have security to the moon. And like stuff like honestly, like stuff like that, it's just like you never know when stuff like that's gonna happen. I'm always one of those proponents like make sure you're doing the best. Don't go to websites don't go to websites that look fishy. Don't go to websites that look like, oh, you can win a free Lambo. Like, yes, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. No.
And then like the one thing too to like I would always say to like point out to people too is when you're web surfing, in your little top of the little browser bar, you see that little lock. If that lock has a line through it, get away from that website.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
No. And I'm not saying that's all for all bad websites. Some companies are just really lazy and they don't update their like their certificate, the SSL cert, the secure layer.
SSL or SS?
It's secure socket layer.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's secure socket layer certificate, and that's so like the HTTPS, so that you know that the data is encrypted. And the problem with that is like let's say if you're going to a shopping, like let's say you're like, cool, I found this really cool like Pikachu plush, but you see up there that the lock, go, leave, don't do that, because as soon as you put your information in, you may get that plush, but
what else are you giving?
Jose over in Brazil now has your credit card.
Right, I was trying to find the statistics on how many times like in America companies get hacked, but they don't plainly have it, so I didn't feel like going through research article trying to find it. But No, it's astounding how many times companies do get hacked, and how many people do get hacked as well.
Well, look, that was funny with me. Like, I've technically been the victim of a cyber attack once, and that was back when that was like the beginning of like going to college for like 2014. And what had happened was, Washtenaw Community College, where I went to school at the time, had a thing where like companies could send you emails if you wanted to work while you're going to school. I was like, cool, that's great. And so this place was like, oh, you can be a secret shopper. And I'm like, that's great, cool, I can be a secret shopper. So they sent me the money, I deposited it in my account or whatever, and then I did the secret shopping, and I was about to type up the thing, and literally the next day I look at my account and I have like negative like $200 in my account. And I was just like, and I was like, what the heck? And they're like, oh yeah, it was a fraudulent check. And I'm like, I did not know that. And it was funny because like, so I finally got that. Like my friend and my mom like helped me get my bank account back to the positive. I was like, I was happy about that. Everything was fixed. I still bought some like things that I wanted with the $200 they were gonna pay me for it. And it was funny because I was literally about the next day about to pull out the money from the account and then send it to the next person.
Yeah.
And as soon as they did that, the guy messaged me that day. He was like, oh, did you finish your thing? I was all like, I'm aware that this is a scam. And then it was like, the authorities have been notified. No contact.
I would have
after that.
Yeah, it was great. Well, send me another one.
Yeah.
Try to keep it up like those.
And then pretty much, and then what happened after that, which is funny because I probably should have done it because he messaged me back like a month or two later asking the same thing. I'm just like,
did he not remember?
And I was just like,
really
do you not remember that the authorities were contacted last time? Didn't contact me back, and I'm like, but I was smart about it. Instead of having other people fall for it, I let the cybersecurity team at Washtenaw Community College know about it.
Oh, okay.
I told them, I was like, you might want to look at this email, and I forwarded it to them and everything so they could look at it. I was like, yeah, just keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, because MSU, they got hacked back in 2016, and after that hack, they gave us like a couple options. We could take advantage of like a 2-year account.
Was that
protection.
the MSU store hack?
It might have been the store hack. I'm not sure where it originated from, but like a lot of the accounts were hacked. So it was like, yeah, your information could be out there. You can take this, protection plan if you want. It will last for like 2 years, or the other option was like a worse option. So I was like, I'd rather have the plan protection. So signed up for that. So for 2 years, they were watching my account, and then I realized, probably back in 2017, that someone was opening up credit cards in my name.
Yeah.
One was a Pep Boys credit card account in Illinois. I'm like, there's not a Pep Boys in this Tri-City area for miles. So I had to call Pep Boys, cancel that credit card. And then they also opened up a phone, and Sprint, they sent me a bill. I'm like, Sprint, this is not my bill. Sprint was annoying about it. Sprint it took me about a month to get Sprint off my back because it was not something I did. I already had a phone. Like, why would I?
Yeah.
Why Sprint?
Phone companies are really weird with it. I had a time where I got the Google Pixel 2 when it came out back in 2017, and I was excited, and I can't remember exactly what happened. It's like I had dropped it in the snow once, but I made sure everything was good there, and there was no like water damage issues happening, but like it would just it would randomly shut itself down, and this happened beforehand. So I was like, fine. I was like, no, I'm gonna return this phone.
Yeah.
And I was because it was still under warranty. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll send you out a new one. Someone stole the phone in transit. So then FedEx was nice enough to tell me about it. So like, yes, look, someone stole this in transit. I know it's supposed to be delivered today, and I'm like, okay. So I was like, they're like, I would call Verizon. Called Verizon. The lady at Verizon was like the sweetest person. She's like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yada yada yada. And so like, I'm sitting there like talking to them about it, and like, finally I'm like, and I was working at like Taco Bell at the time, and so finally like, a couple weeks later, I look at a phone bill, $1,000.
They charged you.
And I'm like, and I called them, and I was like, yo, like, the phone was stolen in transit. I've told you this once already.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, okay, sorry about that. We'll refund all the money and pay you like $60, something like that. So you just go, cool, great, thanks.
Yep.
And then so that happened, and then a month or two later, before I moved out from like Howell to Grand Rapids,
Yeah.
they did it again. And I sat there and I'm just like, yo, I've called
What
you
is
once
this?
about this.
Right.
Why are you doing this again? And this time they try to like get the $60 as like sales tax from the phone. Like, well, we can't remove the sales tax, but we can remove the phone. I'm like, I'm not paying the sales tax. I couldn't return the phone because it was stolen in transit. And they did not want to listen to me about that. Like, well, no, I'm not paying the sales tax.
Right.
And they're like, well, if you don't pay the sales tax, we're just going to disconnect your service. So that's when I went from T-Mobile from Verizon to T-Mobile. Because I was like, and they had a thing called Get You Out of the Red, which I think is the most shade a phone company can throw at another company. But it was true though, because Verizon was notorious for doing that to people. And I stuck with like T-Mobile for a good 2 years, and T-Mobile isn't bad. It was just like their service was just so spotty, and I needed something like that. So I like switched over to Xfinity Mobile about a year ago. That one's okay because it uses Verizon's like towers.
Yeah.
But it's so annoying because on a profile it automatically tries to connect to Xfinity hotspot. So if I'm sitting at home and like my internet disconnects itself, it'll automatically connect to someone else's Xfinity hotspot. I'm like, stop it. And it's just like the most annoying thing ever to watch. And like, I'm like sitting there, I was like, okay, I don't know what you guys want me to do. And like, I don't mind Verizon, but I still owe them like the money, the cost for an iPad and the Google Pixel 2, because I just left. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. Like, you guys can you'll get your money like in 8,000 years if you want it.
Because they definitely seem overpriced to me on any and everything. Verizon.
What they do is how they get you is they give you a very high credit limit with them. Like when I started with them, my credit, like I had like a credit score of like 300. It's almost getting closer to 600 now. I still have some work to do on it.
Right.
And they gave me $4,000 to spend on devices. So that's why I was able to get the iPad no problem, the phone no problem. I was like, yeah. Never again. Never again.
I mean, I'm sure that credit limit is like looks really nice when it hits your credit score. Like, oh, they got this big old credit limit. Let's just bump your score up. So it would look nice. It would work out well. But also, if you're getting these high expensive things and you don't have like the best paying job, you're gonna be in that cycle that they love to put you in.
Oh yeah.
Forever. So I'm still in the process of getting my credit score up and then credit card debt down. It's been better. Definitely being on the whole unemployment COVID thing helps get it down, because then I'm like, okay.
I have a credit card that I have now that I have a late payment on that I have to pay. I'm gonna pay them what I owe them next week, but I'm gonna try to like close, pay off that card and not really touch it, because like the one because I have two now, and like the one's it has an app, but it's still like it doesn't look like crap. The other one doesn't have an app. You can only pay it online, which I kind of like a little bit more, because I'm like, cool, that looks a little bit better. It's a little slow to get my things, but I'm like, I'm not dealing with this one, because it's all like, literally I paid it. I think I accidentally paid it a day late or something like that. And literally I was like, okay, cool, it doesn't show to the account. And they're like, oh no, I was like, no, that's not fair though.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, no.
But back on the phishing emails, there was a company I worked for where we got an email, and myself and my coworker were like, yeah, we're not clicking on it. That seems way too fishy. All right, move it aside, continue on about our day, and then we get another email. Hey, someone clicked on this email, so everybody go ahead and just change your passwords. And, I was like, who clicked on it?
That was we had a phishing email a couple months ago, and one of the directors of our career services clicked on it in an accident.
Yeah, word got around. It was one of the directors.
She clicked on an accident, so they sent it to everyone else.
Yes.
And I was like, and I replied back to them, because you can reply back to them, because all that's really gonna do is like maybe give you some information. It's not gonna actually give them your password and stuff like that, because that would take some. But they sent me a thing to like sign into like an Adobe thing. I was like, okay, cool. And then I looked at it, I was like something, and I was about to, because like I was tired.
Wait,
and then I looked at it, because I just woke up at the time. I looked at the email, and I looked and I thought about it. I was like, wait a second. I don't have any Adobe products with my work account. So I was like, was this supposed to be sent to me?
Right.
And then 10 minutes later, my boss sends a mass email out.
Hey,
avoid that
guys.
email, please.
Yes.
And I was like, we're getting it fixed right now. And I was like, oh, okay.
We've had in that company. There was several different emails. Where it was just like, okay, who is the sender? So I had to literally go through, see the sender. If it's ABC34 domain at some other random,
The
that's
thing,
not us.
the thing you can do too is like it's a smart thing to pay attention to the header. But then also what you can pay attention to if there's links, always hover above the links because it'll show like the text at the bottom.
Oh.
And usually you can tell if it's an actual website, but if it's not an illegitimate website, usually it's the Russians trying to weird Russian hackers trying to hack people. And it's always weird because their domains are always .ru. They're not .com because it's .ru for Russia.
Yeah.
And so it's all like, a OneDrive with a OneDrive.ru domain. Wow, that seems legitimate. Let me just.
I know OneDrive. Click.
No, that's literally what it is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the average person, I know OneDrive, I know this, and then they just
Right.
click on it. I'm like, please don't ever do that
Please
again.
don't do that. Yeah. No, there was a couple times where, and then they put on a policy we had to change your password every month, and I was like, all right, that's better. But it was definitely hilarious getting those emails and not responding to them, and then someone in some department, some big head was like, "Hey, I'm gonna respond to it," and it's like, stop, stop, like don't. You need someone to like watch your email, and it can't be you.
That's like the thing is the weakest link in cybersecurity is humans.
Yeah.
It's people.
Yeah.
It's not software, it's people, because you have to make sure your people, and that's why places like the State of Michigan, Consumers Energy, all those companies will literally they have training on that because they want you to know 99% of those people kind of just bullcrap it. I bullcrap it, but I also bullcrap it because I work for IT, so I know what I'm doing. I'm looking at it. I'm like,
Yeah.
unless like you catch me at like 8 o'clock in the morning, then I'm more vulnerable to click on it then. But if I've had my coffee and I'm up a wide awake, no, you
Right.
won't catch me looking
Nope.
at it. No. You
Can't
won't
get
catch
me.
me slipping that back.
I have no cousin in Nigeria.
What a Nigerian prince wants to send me $1 million? That's amazing.
Wow.
Let me just
Yeah.
give you my bank account information, my last word, my social.
Yeah. Let's see here. What time? I can't really see that far. I think we hit about an hour. What? So you do IT, basically, in short. What's the company that you work for?
Career Quest.
CareerQuest. Okay, so if people want to find themselves in a new career, you can go to CareerQuest. IT would be an area you can work through. as
So
well.
you could. So Career Quest is cool because Career Quest is it's a vocational trade school. So it's not
Okay.
just IT. It's literally like there's IT, then there's like a medical assistant,
Hmm.
then there's like HVAC. So like if you want to become like HVAC heating and cooling and stuff like that, you could literally do anything like. You couldn't do anything. There's a
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but like if you go to the website, their website tells you everything to do.
Hmm.
But like there's people who are like medical assistants, medical billing, coding. There's people who work in ophthalmics, so they work at like eye doctors
Yeah. Okay.
and stuff like that. Some of them don't have like the associate degrees like mine does. Like I got lucky because I came in apparently like back in 2016 is when they introduced the associate's degree. So I was like, cool, I can do this and get my associate's degree,
Yeah.
which is great because now it looks spicy on a resume where I'm like.
You got to, yeah.
Associate's
Certification,
degree.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me about it, I'm not gonna tell you anything about it. I'll be like, "What are you talking about? This is an associate's degree.
Right.
I spent money on this.
Paper.
This is what you want, transcript? There we
Paper
go.
with a seal. Here you go. That's what I got. Yep.
That's literally what it comes down to."
Where do people find you on your social medias?
Most of them, don't add me on Facebook because I won't ever do that. That's weird. Twitter and Instagram are both. I think they're both your boy Jersh. So YABOI and then Jersh.
Jersh, as in J.
JERSH.
Oh,
Yep.
JERSH. All right, I'll put that
Um,
in the description.
Let me see. Twitter.
I forget my Twitter all the time.
Well, that one was okay. No, yeah, they're all your boy Jersh.
Okay, I'll put that in, and if you people want to go out and follow and do all that good stuff, totally acceptable. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I got. Peace, love, and prosperity. Let me do that thing. I forgot to click it.